Bryce, is this thing on?
Yes. It's on,
Oh,
Ren.
well,
And I think on the last podcast you challenged me to come up with a new opening because I said 45 minutes or less, and now I'm challenging you to come up with a new opening for this.
Okay, all right. What about on the fly? It's been a long day of not trading and long-term holding ETFs, and I need a beer. What do you reckon?
I mean, on the fly, it's got potential, but
Yeah.
Anyway, cheers. You've got some time to think
Cheers.
about it. Here we are, afternoon beer discussions. For the second week in a row after a long hiatus, we are lucky enough to be sponsored in this instance again by our friends over at the Betoota Advocate. Betoota Bitter, delicious
Thanks, boys.
beer. If you are looking to get them around this beer, it is in store at Dan Murphy's and online at BoozeBud.
Boozebud.com.
Yes.
And if you want to stock Betoota Bitter, as all good pubs and bottle shops should, hit them up at... Do you have the website?
Yeah, I do. BetootaAdvocate.com/Betoota-bitter.
Nice. I froze there for a moment, but
You
I'm
did,
glad
and
you came in and saved me.
And unfortunately for you, the rules of the game for this series is obviously one beer, one topic, anything to do with the finance space. But there is no editing involved in this, Ren. So that's going to stay in there.
That's all right.
That's
Keep
okay.
it in.
We'll recover.
The other thing is we like to start these out with a bit of a question. We've gone a good few minutes without asking said questions. So unless you got any more preamble, I'll get into it.
Hit me.
So Prohibition ended, 1933 in America.
Yep.
If you had the chance to invest in alcohol companies in 1933, would you?
If I had the chance to invest in alcohol companies in 1933, no.
Oh, wow. That was meant to be a softball to start the conversation. Well, that's throwing this whole episode off the rails. But let's dig into that. Why wouldn't you?
Ethical investor. It doesn't fall within my green screen.
Oh, is alcohol unethical for you?
Yes, alcohol is unethical.
Jeez,
just like gambling and cigarettes, friends. So
tell that to your last Saturday night.
No, I think, look.
Wait, hold on. We're doing a series called Afternoon Beer Discussions. You can't say alcohol's unethical as you drink a beer.
No, look, I would invest in them. In hindsight, you look at the monopolies that exist in the industry at the moment. And look, hopefully you would have picked Lion, but I think anything that you invest in inevitably would have got bought out. So, yeah. What's your thoughts?
I mean, I thought the answer would be a simple, of course, because the industry was going from 12 years of being in the black market, but still a whole bunch of pent up demand to drink. And then all these companies, would have became legal again, or, new companies could now sell alcohol, and it was just an opportunity to get in an industry just as Prohibition was ending. So I would have thought the simple answer would have been yes.
I thought your question was a trick question and you were going to follow it up with, well, the answer should have been no, because the unit economics of producing beer over a long period of time and the inflationary pressures of blah, blah, blah has actually meant that prices of beer have
know me so well
over the last 100 years.
Well, yeah, I'll take that as a comment.
Anyway, so we're not talking about beer though, are we?
We're not. But the dynamic of a government prohibition being in place and then that being lifted and stocks running has form, and that's really what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about sports betting, and Australia hasn't had a prohibition on sports betting. In fact, Australia loves sports betting, it seems. But the US has had a prohibition on sports betting, which was lifted in 2018 by the Supreme Court. So we'll get a bit into the history, but the reason that we're talking about it today sitting in Australia is PointsBet, which people following the ASX would know had an unbelievable day, but has really had an unbelievable run since listing. It's up 420% since it listed in July last year. But the reason it had an unbelievable day, probably a couple of months ago now?
Yeah, I'm just looking at it, and late August.
Yeah. Okay. So about a month ago, it signed a deal with NBC Universal.
No, sorry, in June.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, in the last 6 months.
Yeah, it signed a deal with NBC Universal where it would put a whole bunch of marketing spend through NBC, and then NBC would got an interest in the company, and basically they've partnered together. But really, it's going to help PointsBet really push further into the US market. I think it's already the fourth biggest sports bookie in the US, and it seems posed for incredible growth as a company. But more importantly, the industry as a whole in the US, which is a massive country of sports fanatics. Sports betting hasn't been legal, and now as it grows, it seems the whole industry is going to really benefit. So we're gonna have a beer and talk about sports gambling, sports betting, gambling, one of your favorite pastimes. So I'm really looking forward to picking your brains. Maybe you can give me some good, footy finals are starting. Well, starting tonight actually. So maybe you can give us, who you're going to back in Geelong and Port.
I mean, I can give you who I'm going to back, but not from a dollar point of view. I don't even have a sports bet account, Ren.
You've got William Hill, don't you?
No, I've got
no, Tom Waterhouse. That was
Tom Waterhouse. No, I'm backing in Port.
Are they going to beat the spread?
Don't know what a spread is.
Oh, come on. Yes, you do.
Nah.
You probably got a multi on how every Port player, will they get over or under their disposals?
Not true. Anyway, we're not here to talk about this.
I said I would get one joke in. That was my quota for this. So, I think for me, the dynamic of a government prohibition ending and then companies racing in to fill that void is a really interesting one, and one that's worth watching. And the best analogy I can think in our lifetime was pot stocks.
Marijuana,
Yeah. So marijuana was obviously illegal. And then as governments around the world lifted those prohibitions for medical reasons, and then in some states and some countries for recreational reasons, the share price performance has been incredible. If anything, the sector got so hot, but more importantly, the amount of companies producing marijuana was just so high that there was actually an oversupply. The plant itself got less valuable, and some of those stocks have cooled off a little bit. This is completely off topic, but I'm pretty sure an activist investor told one of these pot stocks, stop growing, like you're growing too much.
Wow.
So, yeah, there was, I mean, that's an example of when a sector just got so hot and so much money flooded into it so quickly. And I don't think that's going to happen with sports betting, but I'm really interested to watch it and have that conversation. And as Australia's, I would argue maybe the UK would beat us, but Australia would be up there, I reckon, in terms of money gambled per capita or something like that. It feels like we are a nation that loves a bet.
I mean, surely parts of Asia as well have some pretty significant gamblers going on as well. But it's pretty phenomenal to me that the states have been able to withhold gambling, sports betting anyway, for so long. And I imagine, given the amount of sport that goes on over there, and their willingness to sort of have a punt, the Americans, that sort of go-get attitude, it's just going to go nuts.
Yeah, I think so. So let me give you a little bit of a spiel in terms of why it was illegal, and then let's talk about some of the stocks and some of the ways investors can benefit from it. So sports betting in the States has traditionally been illegal, and it's mainly to do with match fixing. So it was like in the late 1800s, early 1900s, it was a really big problem to the point where, so in baseball, there are two leagues, the National League and the American League. The National League was formed first, 1876. The first match fixing scandal, 1877. The Louisville Grays, basically, as soon as the National League Baseball was created, there was a match fixing scandal. It's just anyway, it feels and that wasn't the only one. The most famous one in baseball, the 1919 World Series, the Chicago White Sox, 8 players took payments to throw the World Series, like the finals.
Wow.
And it has just been sort of endemic in a lot of these sports. A lot of state-based prohibitions on sports betting. But then federally in 1992, there was an act passed, the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act, that banned sports betting across the country. But obviously that didn't stop sports betting. The American Gaming Association, an association I think you would definitely be a card-carrying member for.
Definitely not.
They estimate $150 billion worth of illegal sports betting a year in the United States. 150
Wow.
billion, huge number. But anyway, so that law was in place. Sports betting was illegal, except for Nevada. Really, Las Vegas was the only place you could do it. In 2018, the Supreme Court overturned that. They said that law was unconstitutional. And basically what we've seen from there is a flood of states stepping in and legalizing sports betting. 7 states legalized it within the first 6 months of the Supreme Court ruling. As of recording, and this is per an article I read on ESPN, 18 states have legalized it, but every other state bar 3 is reviewing it or considering it at the moment. There's only 3 states in the US that are hard no's: Idaho, Wisconsin, and Utah. So basically we've gone from a situation where the government banned it outright across the country to 47 states either having it in place or considering legalizing it. And so it's led to an explosion in interest.
Huge
so
parallels
that's really
to huge parallels to what's going on or had been going on with the marijuana industry, as you said at the top there, Ren. All that black market money that was exchanging hands, huge industry on the black market, billions of dollars that really have generated incredible tax sort of returns, I guess, for the governments that have legalized marijuana in their states. And I only assume that the same sort of thing will happen here, is a lot of that illegal will start to become legal, and governments will obviously profit, or not profit, but prosper from that. Interesting that only 3 states have not introduced a bill. Is there any reason, do you know why they haven't? Or
Idaho and Wisconsin they haven't considered it yet. Utah is an interesting one. It's in their constitution, the state constitution, that gambling is, not allowed. So that would take a constitutional amendment at a state level to overturn that one. So that's probably going to be the last state to go. What I find interesting though, and there are a number of reasons that have driven this change in the law. Obviously the Supreme Court case, there's so many Americans were gambling. But one really interesting dynamic is fantasy sports. Now, I'm a bit of a fan of fantasy NFL, as you know. I don't know how familiar you are with it, but there's this dynamic of like daily fantasy where you can put money in and you can win money if you win the daily game. And like there was always a question, like it's a gray area. Is that sports betting, or is that like a different kind of game, or what is it? But it exploded in the US, and
is that what led to DraftKings?
Well, that is DraftKings. So the two big ones are
DraftKings.
DraftKings and FanDuel.
Okay.
And even while sports betting was illegal, and all the big, the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, like all the big sports were against legalizing sports betting, they were actually taking positions. Like they invested in these daily fantasy companies. So the NBA made an equity investment in FanDuel in 2014, and the Major League Baseball and the National Hockey League invested in DraftKings in 2015. So there was this really interesting dynamic playing out that was never going to last that long, where betting on sports themselves were illegal, but this daily fantasy where you could put money in, you could win money, was just exploding in popularity. All the sports leagues were, buying in and investing in it. And it seemed like a bit of a.
But is the daily fantasy still based on real games?
It is, but it's not based on like the results of the games.
Right.
You basically are picking particular players that you think are going to perform well.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. Interesting. So that kind of, I guess, leads us to the conversation around stocks. In this space, because DraftKings is one of the biggest. If you're interested in capitalizing on this market, although it seems like DraftKings is, it is benefiting from the lift in sports betting, but it was up and running before that was happening, right?
Nah, DraftKings. Well, it was as a daily fantasy company, but DraftKings only listed in it became a public company July 2019.
All right.
And so it's up 500%. Its share price is up 500% in the last 14 months, which is pretty incredible. But they're now looking at creating a normal sports book as well. So they're gonna try and expand their product offering to cater for this new opportunity that they have now.
Yeah. So that's a good piece of terminology you use around sports book. That's what they define as companies that essentially you can go in and wager bets. So
it's good that you're here to explain gambling terminology to us.
Hey. So there are a number of different ways that you can invest in this space. Obviously, the most direct is through companies that actually offer the marketplaces to place bets. Your sports book companies. Ren, you already mentioned one there, DraftKings, although they are at this stage focused on the fantasy side, but you did mention they want to expand that to, I guess, real wagering.
Yep.
Yeah. The other big one that I've had my eye on, and this is primarily due to Dave Portnoy on Twitter, just this crazy guy, is Penn National. PENN is the ticker. They're an operator of gaming and racing properties and video gaming operations as well. They offer sports betting at a number of different properties around the United States. But interestingly, the reason they caught my eye is because they took a large stake in Barstool Sports in 2003. In 2007, I think, or maybe even later. I don't actually have the.
I think later
date.
than that. Yeah.
Yeah, later than that. And the owner of Barstool is Dave Portnoy, and he has been day trading on Twitter throughout the COVID thing that's been going on, and inevitably has just been pumping up Penn stock. He's got millions of followers on Twitter, and I can't help but think it has had some influence on the share price, because if I look at what has happened since its low on the 18th of March 2020 at $4.52, it is now trading at $72, an increase of 1,500%.
Wow,
1,500%.
That's a pretty incredible investment. No
crazy.
Wonder he's pumping it up. If you 10 bagged a company in less than a year during COVID, you'd be shouting it from the rooftops.
This is just a case of what, you've got this mega influencer online. You've got a pool of millennials on Robinhood who are looking to invest and following these sorts of people, and the price is skyrocketing. They're seeing a Tesla and jumping on and it's just a bubbling pot of the right things, and this stock has just
Yeah.
gone nuts. It's just gone nuts.
I'm a little bit skeptical of that narrative. The whole like, I don't know if Robinhood investors and, you know, small scale retail investors could 10 bag a stock.
Well, find me
Like,
another gaming stock that's 10 bagged in that period.
no, but it's also like, it's a big casino stock, and so maybe the $4 was an artificial low. Like, maybe it would have fallen extremely heavily during COVID when everything shut down and there was so much uncertainty. So I'm sure part of the rebound is this pump up and this pile on of retail investors, but they just don't have money to 10 bag a stock. Like, US retail investors are less than 20% of the market. Unless
Still a lot of
institutions
cash.
are following Dave Portnoy, I think part of it must just be casinos are reopening and, like, you know, the economy's normalizing, and
Well,
there's got to be
they're
more. There's got to be more to it.
their other greatest, their previous high to before they hit their 450 low was $37. So,
Okay, yeah, but
anyway,
yeah, it's still pretty incredible.
pretty massive growth. But that is of all of the stocks, that one has caught my eye. But you're right, Ren, it is also involved in the casino space. So,
So yeah, you before were talking about actual sports books,
yeah.
and then I know you've got some other ways to benefit that I'm keen to hear.
Mhm.
But let's cover off. So in the Australian, US, and UK markets, there's a few other sports books that people might be interested in doing their own research on, and seeing if they are interested in. So, let's start in Australia. PointsBet is obviously the big one, run by a management team that has a lot of experience, and they're making a big push into the US. Tabcorp is the very Australian focused one. The TAB is where you can normally find Bryce on a Sunday afternoon.
Not true. You said one joke.
I know.
You said one joke.
And then there's another one that kind of is related in Australia, BetMakers Technology Group, that are sort of a service provider to the horse racing industry and the gambling side of the horse racing industry. But there's not a lot in Australia, which surprised me, given, you know, Australia is a gambling nation. In the UK, there's the big one, Flutter Entertainment. They own PointsBet, Betfair, Paddy Power, which is a big Irish one, and they also own a majority stake in FanDuel, the fantasy company. So they're a big one. Also in the UK, William Hill.
Yeah.
And then in the US, you mentioned Penn, you mentioned DraftKings. The only other one that I thought was interesting, Churchill Downs, which is where the Kentucky Derby is run.
Oh yeah.
That's right? Yeah.
Yeah.
They own, so the company Churchill Downs owns that racetrack. They own a bunch of other racetracks. They also own the largest American sports book. It's called Bet America. So that's another bookmaker. The only other one I would add is basically every single casino stock. So your Caesars Entertainment and stuff like that. They all have a sportsbook arm as well. But I was looking at some of their share prices in preparation for this interview, and you can just see how the majority of their business is their casino business, and the sportsbook is just a smaller element.
Yeah.
And so I think what's important when you're figuring out, you know, if you want to invest in this industry, how you invest in this industry is, if you invest in a casino stock because they have a bookmaker, what's actually going to move the share price, what actually generates the majority of their revenue and the majority of their profit. And for a lot of these casino stocks, it's still their physical casino properties.
Absolutely. What other factors do you think you should consider when investing or deciding between these companies? I mean, I'm just thinking switching costs between apps is not difficult for consumers. So it's not really a sticky business, constantly changing the offers that they're given. You know, it's not something that you're with Bet365 and you're with them for life kind of thing. So is it just a matter of who's the biggest and go for them, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's not really a moat per
Mm,
se. Um, I I honestly couldn't tell you what maybe the biggest, maybe the one with the best technology, maybe the one that can offer the best odds. Like if they, the bookmaker makes money from the spread, so the difference between the two sides of the bet. Potentially there's ones that can offer better odds because their costs are lower or they use technology in interesting ways. But honestly, like if you were offered $1.92 on the Sydney Swans to win the flag, or $1.94 for the Sydney Swans to win
very
the flag,
unlikely. Yeah.
it's probably not it's probably not likely to change your you're probably not going to be likely to switch for that. So I would be interested. Like I haven't done enough research on this industry. I don't own any stocks in this industry. Uh, but it would be interesting to know like what is defensible and like what is a moat
Mm.
in this industry. Is there one, or is it just marketing spend, marketing spend,
Just
marketing spend,
yeah, that's what it
trying to
feels like.
acquire customers from each other,
Yeah.
try and convince more people to gamble, which feels like a not the kind of industry that you'd want to be a long-term holder of, because
It's not a race to the bottom, but
dynamics.
it's just you got to
It's a
spend a lot
commodity
to get a
business.
lot.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
the
Yeah.
service, it's like the service is the service is the service,
Yeah.
regardless of which company you're with.
Yeah,
And they're
exactly.
probably not the businesses that you want to be just a long-term set and forget shareholder of, because as soon as someone comes in and disrupts it, or has a better, some new way of gambling or something like that, it really would disrupt it. I think
Which
maybe the
is
way to play it is, if the actual gambling service, like the bookmaking service part of it, is a commoditized. So everyone basically offers the same service, basically with the same functionality, and basically with the same layout on the same sports. Then it's like, all right, well, what are the other avenues for customer acquisition? The straight advertising, we get pumped with sports bet advertising in Australia. Um, there's probably a diminishing returns there. Like every additional dollar you spend on that kind of advertising, you're recruiting less and less customers, because your competitors are doing it, and you've already saturated the airwaves and stuff like that. So then maybe the way to ask that question is to flip it around and say, okay, you can't have a moat on your sportsbook business because it's just a commoditized service. But what are the associated businesses that you can
mm,
build in
mm.
around the sportsbook service that you can build a moat around and you can make defensible? And I guess that's probably the play with Penn National and their investment in Barstool. And I think they have the option to fully acquire Barstool in a couple of years if they want to do it. Maybe it's like, all right, well, we're just going to offer the same gambling service as everyone else, but how we're going to attract and keep customers is we're going to build this ecosystem of content around them with Barstool, and then people will come for Barstool and then stay for the gambling services.
Mm, mm.
So maybe that's the play. Yeah.
Well, there is another avenue, Ren, and we can close out with this. And it's, you love the old, rather than, I'm going to screw this analogy up as always, but rather than invest in the gold miners, you invest in the people selling the picks and shovels.
Yeah, you didn't screw that
Um,
up. Yeah.
nice.
You make more money, but yeah,
Yeah. So just like, I guess just like, the gold miners and the gold rush, when it comes to investing in stocks like sports betting, you don't necessarily have to invest directly in the sports book companies to sort of ride the tailwinds. And I found a couple of stocks that are in this sort of industry, I guess. But if you wanted to have a play, might, I guess, lead to some different opportunities. So the first is in the technology space. The first company is called GAN, G-A-N, that is the ticker, G-A-N, called Game Account Network. And they're a global technology provider to online gaming and sports betting industry. They started off providing tech for games of skill and have later expanded to offering full gaming software systems and becoming a leader in online gaming. And that technology spreads across to building platforms for sports betting and virtual simulated games and that sort of stuff. So they are pretty deeply involved in the space. And then in terms of account management and the more admin side, there's a company called Gambi, Gambi, and they provide sports bet companies with technology to help manage all of their player accounts, both online and obviously their bricks and mortar. So a couple of companies to consider, think outside the box if you do want to get the tailwinds of what's going on, but not directly invested in these sportsbook companies. Another one, yeah.
Sorry, you go.
I was going to say there's a couple of others, and they're in the lead generation space, and this might be a bit more interesting because these betting agencies spend big money on trying to get acquisition, and so there's one called Catena Media, and they're a company focused on online gambling and gaming, and their business is structured around both, I guess, affiliates, if that makes sense. So companies pay them to then generate affiliates back to these companies. I don't know how they do it. Maybe
I was going to say, isn't it? Yeah. How do they do it?
Yeah, I don't know. Audience
maybe just heaps
have,
of meme accounts.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated in this. It's kind of a weird business to get into, and you'd be putting yourself under a lot of pressure if you're saying we can get you affiliates, because you've got to go out there yourself and actually build appropriate audiences. And I always see there's news articles about scammers who are just doing affiliates. It's massive in crypto, this space.
Yeah. The other thing is, like, if your best businesses are ones where you can have the customer build recurring revenue, that is like the complete opposite of an affiliate based business. You refer a customer on, you can't refer them again. You've got to then go and find the next customer. Sounds too much work for me.
Yeah, way too much. There's another one that's in the same business. It's called Better Collective, and they, their revenues through affiliate marketing. Again, yeah, weird. But I'm just saying that there are options out there that if you don't want to be directly invested from any, ethical reason, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't want to invest for ethical reasons, this whole conversation is not. Like it's all moot. Like, you wouldn't invest in any of these businesses if you had a hard ethical screen.
No.
But luckily for us, Bryce is highly unethical, and so.
Anyway, Ren, that's a wrap. Is there one more thing?
There's always one more thing with me. One other way to invest in it is simply the sports teams themselves. So if you think about what allowing sports betting to do, a sports betting in will do, it's that there will probably be a whole bunch more people viewing these games because they're not particularly interested in the sport, but they're interested in the gambling side of it. So, someone puts a multi on 3 NFL games that they were going to watch anyway, and a hockey game that is on the weekend that they don't care about. Then all of a sudden, those people are going to view the hockey game. So I think the sports teams themselves may see an uptick in valuation if sports betting rolls out in America the way we see it in Australia, or the way I imagine it is in the UK, which is like everywhere around these sports. And so, there's a bunch of publicly listed sports teams, US sports teams, and you could look at investing in them as well. Potentially that's one way to invest in this trend that isn't unethical.
Yeah, nice. All right, Ren. Good beer chat.
Nice one. Thanks to the boys at the Betoota Bitter. Keep brewing.
Keep brewing, yeah.
Yeah.
But as always,
until next time.
Good afternoon beer discussions, and looking forward to the next one.
Sounds good.
Nice.
Still recording, bro.
Oh. No.
Yeah, I'm saying.